All right, we are back on the Connected Design podcast and excited to be joined right now by a man that I feel like needs no introduction, but we're going to do it anyway. So, Mr. Joe Piccirilli, appreciate you joining us and diving into this podcast with us. So much to dive into with you, and I'm really excited about it. First of all, just thank you for taking the time and being willing to get on a podcast.
Rob, it is me that owes you thanks. Thanks for finding not only me interesting, but my subject interesting. And I really appreciate you taking time to have me on.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's one, I feel like following for a while, but this category, and I don't want to dive into it because I know we got a lot to talk about before we really get into energy and power, but it just feels like of late it's gotten that attention that it finally deserves. So this is going to be a lot of fun to do with you. And I know, we're sitting here on one podcast. This is going to be, for those that don't know, strap in because we're going to have some fun with you and pick your brain on this category. So thank you for that. And, I want to tee it up, though. So for those the few that don't know you, give us a little bit about your background, yourself, and how you got into this wonderful industry.
All right. I'll try and do it and not take up the whole podcast with my introduction. But I have been in the consumer electronics industry. This is my 52nd year, a long, long time. And here I am, a first generation American. Both my parents were Italian immigrants. And
I'm sorry to interrupt. What part of Italy?
The province of Abruzzo, which is east of Rome.
Okay. I'm Calabria, Avellino over here.
Oh, really?
Third, I'm a little further along. I have fourth generation, but,
I am lucky enough to still have the house that my father and my grandfather and my great-grandfather were born in.
I am jealous of that. That is incredible. Yeah.
But, of course, like most first-generation children, the parents go, you're getting an education, you don't have a choice. There was no combating that, and I was firstborn, so the pressure was hard. And I was in engineering school at the University of Michigan working on a graduate degree in engineering when I dropped out of graduate school to open a stereo store in Fort Lauderdale.
Wow.
Now, you might guess that my parents were not very happy. And you would have guessed correctly.
Yeah.
But that's how I got into the business. Actually, I was recruited by a company in Boston, and I wanted to be in the business called Tech Hi-Fi, which actually had stores in Philly, your home territory.
Yep.
And myself and my closest friend, Mark Phillips, he went to school with me, and we went to Tech Hi-Fi in Boston. They moved us to Michigan to open stores, of course, with the promise of equity that never came. And then we moved to Florida to open a company called Sound Advice. And, my parents are going, you were supposed to have a master's degree in engineering. What's wrong with you? And, but fortunately, we picked the right time to be in South Florida. We were able to take Sound Advice public in the 80s. So my parents forgave me. And, it was there that I really got exposed to the consumer electronics business. But I also got exposed to the fact that Joe Piccirilli working in a public company is a bad idea. So in 1989, I retired from the company and did what most people retire too early. I started a consulting company because it was better than saying I was unemployed. And, I went from there. I saw an opportunity in the distribution business, and I started this distribution company called Avid, which became a national company. And it was during the Avid days, because we distributed Crestron and Lutron, that I noticed something. First thing I noticed was customers hated it. Give me back my light switch. It always works. Why? I have to have a room for a programmer because he lives here. So I'm going, what is the deal here? What's the problem? So I took the stuff off our shelves. I took it apart. I looked at build quality and parts quality. And in the case of Crestron and Lutron, they're extremely well-built products. And at that point, we had 30 warehouses around the country. So I could do a somewhat qualitative but quick analysis of installations. And because Crestron and Lutron were very well documented, the installations, with some exceptions, were good. So that narrowed the problem down to power. And in about 2007, I started to study the grid.
Yep.
And the grid's been around since the turn of the 20th century. So it's pretty old.
Yeah.
What I noticed was the grid could not deliver constant voltage, which until the advent of the microprocessor was meaningless.
Right.
So in fact, I think when you and I first met, I told you this. The first indication of power quality problems was when you owned a VCR and it was blinking 12 for no apparent reason.
Right.
That was the first indication of power problems. So I began to look at what could the grid deliver and how could I build a product that would deliver perfect power at all times.
Yeah.
And it couldn't be just a normal UPS. Because in order to create what I consider to be power resilience for a residence, you had to be able to ensure that the grid was always perfect.
Right.
You had to do something if there was a power outage, because most power conditioners have minutes of runtime. Well, that's not enough. You need hours and days. You need to have something that can have real surge protection as opposed to the $400 device that the utilities want to market, because those don't work at all. So that was the basis of Rosewater Energy. So we build the most complete residential device available. And I mean, we add all kinds of things, and I could go on forever. But we create redundancy. I am N+1, which means if I have a component failure, I don't even lose capacity. And it's not swappable. So that was the beginning, and that I found my manufacturer. Well, I began to design the product in 2012, and then delivered the first product in 2016. Awesome. And to your point, in 2016, nobody was talking about this. You have to mention talking about a device that was plus $100,000.
Right. Correct. So it's been an interesting decade to follow. But before we even get into that, I want to go back to maybe a time you want to forget about of leaving that master's program to get into retail. Yeah. What drew you to this the audio business?
Well, I have been an audio junkie my entire life. Just to give you a story, my first academic scholarship check to the University of Michigan was written to me. So what did I do with that check? I went to the local stereo store, figured I could always postpone.
Oh no!
That's
awesome.
That's how bad I had it.
You had the bug.
and only somewhat. I mean, that is a true story. But when you think back at the time, right? This is early 70s. So this is towards the end of the Vietnam War. And our soldiers were coming back from PXs in Japan with brands nobody had ever seen before. Kenwood, Sansui, Pioneer. That was affordable high fidelity. And of course, the rock and roll scene was just, the Beatles were here, the Stones were here. All the West California groups were big. So owning a stereo was a big deal. And people were buying them left and right. Because prior to that, it was sort of reserved for people with a lot of money who could afford Macintosh and Scott, or who could build their own Dynakits. I don't know if you remember Dynakits, but I'm old enough to. So it was a time when the industry was booming. Absolutely. Yeah. It was just, it was in its beginning phases, but it was at that hockey stick point where it was going up. So I loved stereo equipment. I loved music, and here we are.
That's odd. Was there anything that you take from those days that you're still, applying to what you do today?
Yes. And this is what sometimes it irritates me because it's so simple and people forget it today. One of the things that we did as a retailer early on was we understood the most important brand we sold. And that brand was us. It was not Sony or any of the other manufacturers. And here I am as a manufacturer telling my dealers exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
But it is the brand position and being true to your brand position, which there are times that becomes difficult when, when cash gets a little tight and you're sitting down going, well, should I really change my strategy? Maybe I should become a discount house or lower my product quality and price. But being true to who you are and understanding your brand position, that's the smartest thing we ever did. And I did that with Avid and with Rosewater. Rosewater
Yeah.
has a brand position that is simply the best, and I will do nothing to compromise that.
No, that if there's anything, I mean, we could stop there and not talk about power. That's not what we're going to do. But like that right there, I think is a message that you could kind of put in a package, put in a bow, and like deliver. And if anyone took anything from this, it's that, right? Is you can't try to be something you're not, and just know who you are, know your customers, and
Exactly.
You know.
I mean, when I say it out loud, I go, "Well, Joe, everybody knows that."
Right.
But few people actually execute it.
Yeah.
And that's what's so weird. My fraternity brother and I, we started the business together. Knew that from the get-go. That no, this is our brand. The rest of it doesn't matter because your brands change. The products you sell change, and then again down that same line. And you got me down this rabbit hole.
It's my fault. I know.
Everything you sell has to have the appropriate reflection on your brand. And you choose your partners by their brand position. And is it synergistic with yours?
Right.
You know, and that, again, it's so easy to say and seems so obvious.
Yeah.
It's really hard to execute at times.
Well, I know. Well, we could save this for another time. Like I said, this is not going to be the only time we have you on. And, I think there's a lot to be said about, why that's a challenge. And without getting into it, we'll leave that as a little cliffhanger for anyone that wants to follow along the story. But, why that's a challenge and things, how you were able to be successful with it. But, one thing kind of shifting gears, I know, we had the chance to connect at Builders Week, which for me, it was the first time in a while that I had been to that show and been to Orlando to go there for it. That's its own experience. We could probably do a whole separate episode on that. But if there's anything I took out of that is I feel like that is such a missed opportunity for the custom integrator and the CI world, with everything that's going on down there and sort of what you see on the floor. And I know it's alongside, appliances and toilets and things like that and, everything that's going on the KBIS side. But that Builders Week feels like a really cool, opportunity for this channel. I wanted to get, that's me sort of leading the witness, but I wanted to give you a chance to kind of share your thoughts on it, what you thought of that show. And,
I walked out of there using your word. I saw opportunity with a capital O. It was like, wow. I mean, there's an overwhelming amount to see. And I had brought my wife with me to that show, so God knows what it cost me.
Future projects of your own, right?
But, you look around and, you mentioned the word appliance. Every appliance has microprocessors. It's microprocessor dependent. And there are some really cool ones, cool ones. I don't know if you noticed, did you go to the Kohler booth?
I did. I had a great tour.
Did you see that little commode attachment that they're offering?
Is it the one that analyzes your, analyzes your stuff?
Yes. When you think about that, that and devices like it are what's going to lower the healthcare cost curves because they are going to make telemedicine work. If you get the lab out of the equation, that's incredible.
Unbelievable. Yeah.
And I was like, I've been talking about this for a decade, and now to walk that show and see this it's an add-on to any commode you have. You can just, in fact, I got home and I ordered one immediately because I have to see
it was costing you money. That's awesome.
As I walk through there, and then it kills me that my system integrator community and the builder and design community, even though our major language is English, we don't speak the same language at all. Right. And we have to fix that.
Yeah, that absolutely was, something I've experienced it and had conversations about it prior to being there. But then you get there and you see sort of how things are presented, how, even the tech section that was there. I forget which hall specifically it was in. I think it might have been the West Hall, but it was like where Legrand was, where Savant was. You see all the ABB was there. How they present themselves at a show like that, and they know the integrators aren't there, but it's the same brands that you would see at a CEDIA,
Exactly.
right? And how they talk to the community that's at a Builders Week, the Builders Show or KBIZ. And I mean, even that, it's just a little bit different. And like, it's tough to put your finger on like why, they can't just make it all work together, but it feels like that's the direction it has to go for, at least for the integrator's sake, right? To be able to get in with that community and do everything we've wanted them to do in the home building segment.
I am determined
Yeah.
to be one of the people who help make this work. That's why I love the name you've chosen, Connected Design, because
Thank you.
and this, I'm not throwing out idle flattery. It is what we need. It is that connection. And, it sounds easy, but nobody's been able to do it for the last 25 years that I could tell.
Right. Again, to your point, it's the same as, all these kind of conversations can, I feel like, flow and learn from one another too, right? Like everything you talk about being true to your brand, it's the same here. It's like being true to your trade, but at the same time, understanding that, to me, it's always been from, and it's not one directional either. I feel like it's a lot of ego between the communities, right? Like the home builder, they're all the expert at what they do. They're the best at it. There's a reason they're in business, the business that they're in. But then it's like, having to rely on someone, they can't check their egos at the door, no matter which way the conversation's going. And it's just, it doesn't help anyone.
I agree. We have this battle of egos. And because it's a battle of egos, nobody trusts one another.
Right.
So it's like, oh, the integrators are just trying to sell me more shit I don't need, excuse my language.
Right.
And, and the builders are sitting there saying, whatever they quote me, I want 50% less in dollars. But I want the same stuff. You got to sell it to me cheaper. And that's the language. Neither one of them understand the language. And what is interesting, and I told you I was going to the design retreat.
Yeah. Yep.
What I'm finding is that a lot of the people in the build and design community that are actual designers don't understand their worth. And they peg their worth on the sale of product instead of the sale of their knowledge.
Yep.
And as far as I'm concerned, their knowledge is the only worthwhile thing they have.
Right.
Products I can buy anywhere. So,
right. There may be no better example of that, and I still want to stay on this topic, but like of power, right? And I know we talked about it while we were there. The idea that you might think you understand, the product and what's going in, but if you don't do it right, there is a big difference between if you properly install, if you manage the power within a home versus if you just kind of slap it on and throw a few outlets throughout, and you think you did your job well. It's just not the same.
No, I know, and it is, somebody who is going to think it through and follow it through. That's really what end users want to pay for. And there is this huge trust gap between builders and integrators and designers, and that's got to stop. At some point, everybody's got to get around and talk to each other and start to build that trust.
So one thing I did notice, and it's almost like a counterpoint to everything we've been saying, is that in some cases it's because, especially on the design side, I feel like they've had a relationship where they feel like they've been scorned or something didn't go well, as they expected it. But it's still, so they feel like they're right to not trust someone on the tech space or on the tech side, right? Because everyone's had that bad experience.
I think you're right, and I think that a lot of times, because it leads us right back to power, the experience that went bad was power's fault. It was because people neglected the category. I mean, in our case, clients who have multiple homes, when they install our product in one home, they end up installing it in all their homes. And there is no better testimony to my product than that.
Yeah.
Because it's just, it makes the house work better. And that, it's interesting. I'm under too many NDAs but we had a property manager who had a client with a problem house. And he called up, said, I hear that if I put in your product, my client will stop complaining. And that's exactly what happened.
There you go.
And And again, that is, there was a level of trust built, and, Rosewater's been building that trust over a decade now.
Yeah.
But that's the area that we have to work on. We, as all three of the communities, builder design and the integration community, have to work on the trust. And I think this knowledge about power is going to help get over that gap, because we've blamed the wrong people for failure.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm hoping Rosewater helps create that bridge.
Now, do you, from a part, speaking of building trust and the partners you work with, do you guys, and this is more of a me being curious, the integrators you work with, how much vetting goes on there to make sure that or education, maybe not necessarily vetting, but the education so that they are putting in your product correctly so that, you get the type of testimonials that you're talking about?
Well, it's both of those things. It's vetting and education. One of the things you should know about Rosewater, when I first started the company, and I knew how difficult the installation was going to be because it requires high voltage permits, electricians. And, I'm going, I can't train every electrician in the country. And also, I am concerned because electricians typically do not sell expensive product.
Right.
So at Rosewater, we install the product.
Mm-hmm.
So from my point of view, now I can't pull a permit in every municipality in the country, but when a product is delivered, a Rosewater technician is with it. And then we watch the local electrician hook it up. And then we depend on our local retailer to communicate and serve the client.
Right.
And we are very picky about who we choose. I think out of the field of, what would you guess, about 8,000 integrators in the country? Is that a good number?
If I remember right, CEDIA's last survey in 25, might have been last year. There's like 20,000 integrators.
Okay, that makes
but it's only like, if you look at, not to say, I don't want to slight any of them, right? Because they're all business owners and they're doing their thing. But the ones that are established, you talk about the groups, right? There's probably about 3,500, 4,000 that are in the groups.
All right.
So
if you look at that, and maybe another 1,500 or so who are could be in the groups but choose not to be, so that gets us to 5,000.
Yep.
Of that, I think there are 200 dealers who are qualified to sell Rosewater. It's a pretty narrow funnel at this point.
Yeah. It's 1% if you look at the whole. That's crazy.
And part of it is selling technique. Part of it is having the clientele who can. A Rosewater target is houses 5 million and up. Yeah. So that's really basically, who has that clientele and who's not afraid of it. It's interesting. One of the tactics that Rosewater started implementing at the beginning of last year was, in one of my previous lives, I wrote and implemented sales training, legitimate sales training. And it dawned on me that our industry was built by car installers and technicians. In the old days of specialty retailing, like at Sound Advice, we had a training department. All of the big retailers had their own training departments. Most of the people who are in our industry have never had professional sales training, ever.
Yeah, the self-starters, right?
Yes.
That's how they all got into it.
No, and I don't mean that as a knock, because we built incredibly good businesses without it, which is amazing to me. But, so I have brought out all my old stuff and updated it, and now Rosewater goes in and we offer our dealers generic sales training that will help them sell whatever else they're selling. And then as an example of that training, we apply it. Okay, now that you know the basics of selling, let's apply them to selling power. And that's been very well received. It's interesting to see. And for me, it's fun because, I love teaching people how to sell stuff. So that's great.
Heck yeah. And it's the kind of that gateway drug, right? It's like, get them in, let them understand it. And then it's like, oh, by the way, here's how this applies everywhere else.
And it's interesting. And I'd be curious to have your observation, because one of the things that, as I was updating it, that I noticed is, okay, what is the difference between selling a course or taking a course and training? And that, because You can't learn a profession, I don't care what it is, by taking one course or even going to B school. You got to get out there and train and analyze every day. You know, my analogy is, look, Tiger Woods, he's in the argument for the greatest golfer of all times, no matter what. He still had a swing coach, and he still practiced more than anybody else. So,
so to bring some of the personal life into this, I'm a wrestling coach. I'm high school wrestler, wrestling coach, and also my kids now are getting into it. Not by force, I should say, by choice. They want to do it, so we're out there, and I'm helping them on the mat and stuff. I know the number we always throw out there is like, and this applies to everything, not just wrestling, but like you got to do something 10,000 times before you've perfected it, or not even perfected it. It's before you've gotten, like, you're excelling at it.
Before it becomes unconscious behavior.
Exactly.
Got to be 10,000, and the number's right. And then you look at a guy like Tiger Woods or Novak Djokovic. I mean, they have probably swung a tennis ball or a tennis racket and a golf club 1 million times, in their careers.
And guess what? They still mess up.
And they still have somebody watching do it.
Yeah, right. So and they're still trying to adjust and adapt and innovate and
you can
all
go
that
to
sort
the
of
nuances, and then you can strategize. Because, the question I always ask myself is, if I were playing me, how would I attack?
Yeah. Yep.
You should know that. I think.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why, you could, truthfully, the sports analogies are too easy, but like you could apply them to anything. It's why you don't see, the NFL, you could make the argument that there's been only certain teams that have been successful, right, over the last couple of years. But at the same time,
I'm working on being successful.
I know, right? So maybe a bad choice, but the point being that you don't have one team consistently dominate because everyone's learning from one another and trying to no matter what you think of the tush push, right? They're trying to find ways to stop it, right? So like teams adapt, they find new strategies, they target your weaknesses. Like same applies to business, right? Where you have to constantly adapt and change your game to be successful.
And how many people in our industry who are salespeople actually do that kind of analytical work on themselves?
That's probably not enough. Not nearly enough.
Not nearly enough is the politically correct answer.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's again, I think another one of those topics that just sort of to use as a jumping off point for us here that I look forward to really, diving into with you. But I know that, the reason for being here today is to talk about power and everything you're doing today and with Rosewater and just this space in general. Because I think we both agree that, what we saw in Orlando, to me, was eye-opening in the fact that, it felt like not the coming out party. Coming out party is the wrong term because, to your point, power's been around, right? But it's finally getting that attention that it deserves. And it feels like, I don't know if it's, the companies like ABB that are doing things with the NASCAR car that they've got, and all these companies, just the conversation around it is finally picking up steam, and people are getting why it's important. And I'm wondering, like, is there something that happened, like something that clicked in the industry, or what is it that you think sort of gave it this level of attention that it deserves?
I think all of a sudden, because we have had some strange weather anomalies that have been giving people power outages, which power outages is what everybody talks about.
Yeah.
And then so all of a sudden power is on people's minds. And now companies like Tesla, Rosewater, Savant, the Apex people, all of us have said, wait, power is a subject that is much larger. But people are more open to talking about it now. And I also think people are starting to feel the effect. It's funny, a Wolf cooktop comes with rebooting instructions. Now, I think they're humorous because one of the instructions is reach underneath, find the plug, and unplug it. How many people who own a Wolf cooktop are actually going to do that?
No. Yeah, no.
But all of a sudden you're starting to see that, and people are feeling the failures. And it is, and I have to give the credit to some of the builders now, because the first line of pain is they get it. When something doesn't work, they're ultimately in charge of the product, and this thing broke. It's your fault.
Right.
And I think builders are just tired of that kind of pain. And if we in the integration community, along with the design community, go, Mr. Builder, do you like the pain? Well, that would be no.
Yeah.
If I had a product that would eliminate 95+% of your pain, would you be interested?
Right. Right.
But that's really, it becomes almost that simple. Because now, so touchless plumbing, there's so many things in a house now that can go bad. Not because it was poorly built, not because it was poorly installed, because the power structure is not good enough to support the products.
Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy.
It is crazy, but hey, it's not.
It's a reality.
Now AI is everywhere. It's it's going to take over where human beings are not going to be necessary anymore. But worst case, power is going to go up tenfold, and you're not going to be able to have it.
Right.
All of it hyperbole. But what is interesting about AI, that as I was reading about it and the power demands, is the power demands of AI are unpredictable because it is dependent on the number of people using at that moment and changes from moment to moment. You think we have voltage fluctuations now? Wait.
Just wait. Yeah. Yeah.
Because
that's
AI is used 24/7, but it's used in populations that are different.
Yeah.
So I think that we have some issues. And then I don't know if we discussed this when we met at the Builder Show, but aging in place.
Yeah. Yeah. More people doing it. I mean, today,
all of the sensors that are necessary in a home to allow aging in place safely. You have to have motion sensors in every room. You should have heat sensors in every room. You should be able to do some biometric analysis in every room. That's a serious amount of processing power.
Yeah.
And people want to build forever homes. That was a topic at the design function.
Yep.
Well, forever homes require the ability to adapt.
Yeah.
And that
it's like the basis for every, like my head's spinning with like so many ways we could take this to, because there's the grid conversation around, to your point, like it was built in the 20s, like for the 20s, right? Like not for today's demand and kind of what it's exploded to. Yes. So there's the conversation around what needs to be done there, or if it can even be done at this point in time. But to your point though, the amount of just product, like we love our technology, we love this channel, we love kind of everything that it's become over the last 10, 15, 20 years. But to the point that, homes today, especially at the level of home that our channel is working in and working on, they require far more than I think what you could talk to utility companies around what they're willing to, provide to that home, right? So there's just so much, like the power is the lifeblood, like the heartbeat of the home, right? Whether you look at it that way or not, it's what makes the home work. Without that power feeding into that home and being fed in correctly and distributed correctly, like none of what goes on is possible. So that to me is kind of the underlying conversation that feels like the way in for the integrator.
I agree. And I think, because a lot of integrators ask me this question, why them? Why not the electricians? And, the integrator, our community, touches more subsystems in a house than anyone outside of maybe the interior design people. Right. We're installing virtually every subsystem in the house. We are not afraid to be the innovators for new product. And because everything we install is affected, it makes most sense for the integration community to take the lead here and create the trust and create the reason. I mean, whenever I'm out talking to my dealers, I go, look, the worst sin you can make is not selling a rose water. It's not selling anything in the power category, because now you're truly doing your customer a disservice. Mm-hmm. And that's, because look, a rose water is not for everybody. It has a fairly serious price tag connected to it. But there are power products and projects. You size the power product to the projects and the needs of the consumer. Right. And it is amazing that we don't do that. It makes me crazy.
It all comes back to that conversation around being that trusted, you're the expert, exactly. Right? And, you got to know you know what you know. You have to apply what you know to those conversations and be able to have the conversation at all, right? Otherwise, then if you ignore it, then you get those situations. Everything we're talking about is just the client experience. You know, the first thing goes wrong, then they're going to that home builder, and all of a sudden that home builder's, you know, whether they know it or not, the power, not having that power conversation could ultimately come back to you, right?
I am hoping that during the course of our discussions, we talk about what you really need to know. Because a lot of our integrators go, well, I'm not an electrician. Going, oh, yeah, that's a surprise.
Passing the buck.
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
So here's what you need to know. And oh, by the way, here's how you present it in a very digestible form. So there are so many building blocks to this. And much of it is just building the integrator confidence. You know, it is not as technical as it seems, but it requires you to understand how to get the customer's needs, wants, and desires from them, to understand, you know, how do you, I try and figure out, okay, of all the subsystems in the house, which are the most important? Well, if you homeschool, your networking, entertainment, your computers, those are kind of really important. If you work at home, you know, if you're a wine collector, your wine room, and people go, you know, wine room, well, I'm going, it's not that the wine's expensive, it's a lot of those bottles you can't buy again. You know, they become irreplaceable. So yes, that person wants it. Why would you make fun of that person? That's his or her passion. Right. And protect it. So I think that becomes a really good conversation down the as we go down this road.
And so something we kind of keep vaguely hitting on it, but electricians keep coming up, right? Yeah. Do you think that's been if there's ever a hurdle for the CI channel in terms of getting involved in the power category? Is it the thought that, or maybe is it a misconception that they need to be certified as an electrician? Like they got to go out and get the proper licensure to make sure that they can do this work?
It doesn't hurt, but it is not necessary. You know, at the rack level, these devices, you don't need a high voltage license.
Right.
At the panel level, or the whole home level, you do, but a lot of us at the panel level, we handle the install as well. Right. But I think where the major issue is, there seems to be a problem. I am stepping on the electrician's toes, and I don't want to make them angry. Right. Well, again, now we have a trust issue. Because the electrician, no electrician I can't say no. There are some electricians who would love to sell my product, and some do. Mm-hmm. But in general, electricians would never touch this product because they don't want to hear about it. They are production people. How many feet of Romex can I pull in a day? Right. How many J boxes can I put in a day? You know, that's not this mentality.
Right.
And, you know, because this is more, I need to build an appropriate infrastructure, not that has the right amount of wall outlets, but that takes care of the power stream coming into the house. Mm-hmm. And that's just a different thought process.
Yeah. And to me, it feels like one that, you know, kind of the pipe dream of this channel is that they want to be involved in the conversation around new home builds or projects sooner.
Yes.
That's got to be, I have to imagine, one of the first conversations is how much power do we need to supply to this home and how are we going to manage it?
You know, and you're right. And if they establish themselves as the power expert, okay, I'm taking care of the power from the meter into the house. I'm not distributing the power. I am making sure that the power is always perfect. It is the power quality that is important. You get a seat at the table really soon. And by the way, if you solve the dealer's pain problem in one house, you get first chair at the next house. And I've seen it happen. I mean, we've had a few builders who go to their integrator now and just say, Rosewater's in this project, you're the Rosewater dealer. Fine. Come to the table now, here are the prints. Let's figure this out. And because it works, and it's that pain point.
Yeah, so if there's anything, I feel like I've said it a couple times here. If there's anything you take away from this, it's that you can get that first chair, and this is, you know, the power category is how you go about it. But that feels like hyperbole, but it's really not. It's not, and you know, it's just one of those things that if you're not thinking about it, then you need to. Like, I don't know what it's going to take. Maybe it's just having more of these conversations that sort of makes them understand.
You made a point earlier. It seems like we're at an inflection point now. And
Yeah.
I noticed it sort of towards the last quarter of 2025. I mean, so far our first quarter of 26 has been off the charts. That's really great. So something has happened. Enough builders, enough architects, and enough integrators know that some integrator knows another integrator who is having success. So now we're starting to build critical mass.
Yeah. And
that's important.
Yeah. And if anything, it's one of those situations where, it feels like we're not there yet.
Right.
But the train's starting to leave the state. It's picking up steam, right? And it's about to leave the station. You better hop on.
Well,
so you don't want to get left behind.
And we also, that's why we need to be picky about who we let on this train at the moment, because we can't screw it up.
Truth. All true.
We have to, if you're curing pain, you can't have your clients hurting. So,
right. Right.
So that's
can't give ourselves more reason, or at the end of the day, break that trust, right? Yeah. So it's
breaking the trust.
No, this is it feels like a good pausing point. We've sufficiently, I think, have established our lead for the rest of the conversations.
I will tell you, this 30 minutes or so went by like a snap.
I know, right?
You are dangerous for me, my friend. We could talk for hours. So.
I know. I don't mind that. So I do and I don't. I know I don't mind it. I know the listeners do. So I want to be cognizant of them and also leave this at a point where, without us diving any further, it's a great stopping point and just a reminder that there will be more of this. So I very much look forward to it, Joe. This was a lot of fun. And again, just thank you for the time, and we'll be doing this again before you know it.
It was absolutely my pleasure. Thank you for having me on, and I really look forward to our future conversations.